What's up? It's Chris, the Drone Geek, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Drones. Let's Talk Drones is brought to you by the Droning Company, the #1 online resource for commercial remote pilots. Make sure you check out all of their awesome articles, materials, resources that will help make you a better and more well-rounded commercial remote pilot, plus a second-to-none job board. Opportunities ranging from 1 and 2 off gigs all the way up to full-time staff positions as a remote pilot or UAV expert with companies and organizations. Check them out online, thedroningcompany.com, and across all major social media platforms. I'll have those linked down below. Today's video, finally, we are to part 2 of the Bwine F7 drone review. In our last video, we went over the unboxing and the setup of the F7. In those two categories, the unboxing scored a 3.5 out of 5, and the setup scored a 2 out of 5, giving us a total score so far of a 5.5 out of 10. Today, we're going over the flight characteristics as well as the camera performance on the Bwine F7 drone. So for the flight performance, we're gonna have to go out into the field. Let's head there now. All right, we are here in beautiful Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania, near the community park, and I am having one heck of a time getting connected to this drone. I actually don't know if we're going to be able to do a live flight characteristics review. It stinks because I wish that we really could have gotten into the nuts and bolts of this. I mean, it's frustrating. So what I'm gonna do is the next best thing, and I'm gonna be playing some footage for you of the drone flying from the first time that I took it out flying and everything worked really well, to this screen here to show you the different flight modes and flight characteristics. I'm actually just gonna turn this controller off. It says to take it out to a wide open space. It is pretty wide open here, and it's confusing as to why this isn't connecting. I've tried both batteries. I've got the other one in my pocket here, and neither one of them seem to work. Like I said, this isn't the first time I've had an issue with this. It may be user error. I don't want to just chalk this up to the Bwine drone having a problem. But like I said, I've gone through the process 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and I can't get it to connect. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up the phone screen so that you can see the app. So this is what the Bwine app looks like. What I was going to go over was a bunch of the different flight modes, and they have quite a few here. You'll see on the screen that we have image follow, followed by GPS follow, around flight. Those are the 3 intelligent flight modes. There's a 4th one we're gonna talk about in just a second. Image follow basically means you draw an outline around your subject, and then the drone recognizes that as your subject and it follows it no matter where it goes. So you can follow cars, you can follow people, whatever the case may be. You just have to highlight it on the drone screen. GPS follow basically means that it's going to follow this thing right here. So wherever the controller goes, the drone's gonna go. So if you were hiking, you wanted to get some footage or a selfie or a shot of you hiking, you could actually hit that. It would follow you based upon where the remote controller was. So that's pretty cool. The last one is around flight. You can probably figure out what that means. That means that you select the subject and it orbits around the subject for you automatically. The next 3 that I'm going to talk about are the Jess Photo, the Jess Record, and the Route Rules. So the first one is Jess Photo. If you hold up a peace sign in front of the drone while it's in photo mode, it'll actually snap a picture of you when you do the peace sign. Jess Record is when you put 5 fingers up in front of the drone, like your hand wide open. It will start to record a video of you without you having to interface with the controller. So I think the idea behind these 2 flight modes was to allow you to control the drone without having to actually have the controller in your hand. You could set this to the side and just take a really nice picture without this big bulky controller in your hand. The last one is the Route Rules, and basically what that is it's a waypoint. You set waypoints on the screen, the drone then follows those waypoints. You don't have to do any manual flying, it just follows those waypoints as you go. The other options here in this menu you'll see are music, VR, lens angle, filter, and zoom. So lens angle and zoom you can control on the controller here with your dials. It basically just controls the zoom function, which is a digital zoom on the drone itself or on the image itself, not an optical zoom. And then the lens angle is to just tilt the gimbal up and down. You can do that through the app on the screen rather than using the dials on the controller. Why you would do that, I don't really know, but the option is there. It's also got music, VR, and filter. So music has a catalog of music clips that you can then put 30-second video clips from your drone into, and it basically just pairs it with music without you having to go and download music on your computer or do it in post-production and transfer the files over to whatever machine you're using to edit your videos. VR mode is like FPV mode. It allows you to interface with your phone by putting it into a set of VR goggles, and then you can fly this drone with goggles and get like a first-person point of view through the drone's camera. So it takes the drone that you're flying GPS-wise through your controller and your phone and turns it into an FPV drone, or a quote-unquote FPV drone. The last is filter. You can just set preset filters to the images and the videos that you're taking through the app. You don't have to do it in post-production. It can all be done as you're shooting it. So overall, this is a really disappointing adventure. I'm gonna go ahead and put some video up from me flying the first day that I took this out to try to fly it, and just talk a little bit about the handling. The drone itself handles pretty well. It's tight, you know, and I like flying tight controls because it gives me a sense of deliberation or deliberateness when I'm flying the drone. I don't want it to be super touchy so that if I just bump the stick, it like does a 360. I don't want that in my drone. I want to be able to put this all the way over and know that I'm gonna get a nice, smooth shot. Now I know that there's different strokes for different folks is the saying. But for me, when I'm flying a GPS style drone, I just really appreciate when I can, make a very deliberate movement, and I know the controller and the drone are going to respond based upon my input and not just the sensitivity that's preset into the drone. I really enjoyed that about it. What I didn't enjoy about the flight characteristics of it is that it doesn't hold position super well. And why that's important is because when you're out in the field and you're flying in a very busy area when it comes to obstacles and whatnot, it's very difficult to have faith in this drone that it's not going to run into something. It does not have obstacle avoidance on it. So that's a real problem when you're flying in a tight space. If it can't hold a very precise location and keep that location, within maybe just an inch or two, it could cause some problems for you when you're flying through tight, cramped spaces. The other thing that I didn't really like about this experience with flying the drone is just it does not stop nearly as quickly as it needs to. If I have this to the ground and I am pitching forward or backward or side to side, whatever, if I'm going full throttle, forward, backward, side to side, I need to give myself at least 20 feet, at least, because it doesn't pick up on the fact that I let go of the sticks quick enough. And with other drones, you can you still need to give it a little bit of a buffer zone so you don't run into something. But if you let go of the stick, the drone pretty much responds immediately to that, which I guess goes against that argument of touchiness, but it's a different style of touchiness, I guess is what I'm saying. Those are the only two negatives. Everything else about this drone and the flight of this drone is absolutely fantastic. I have zero complaints other than the fact I can't get it connected for some reason today, which is really disappointing because this could have been a much, much better video for the Bwine F7 drone. But I hope that you enjoyed the footage that I did play, went over the flight modes on the phone screen. I just hope that did something for you. You just gotta take my word for it. I've been flying drones for 5 years, 6 years almost. And this is by far one of my favorite drones I've ever flown. That has to do with handling. It's a fun fly is what I'm trying to say. It may not be the most precise, it may not be the most responsive, but it's got nice controls to it, it's got a nice feel to it. And like I said, I just had a good time with it. And maybe that's because I just love flying all drones, but this one in particular is going high on my list for flight characteristics.
Hi there, it's Chris, the Drone Geek. And because I have small brain, I did not mention the scores at the end of the sections that we cover in this video. So pop it in here, and I'll pop in again later to let you know that the score for the flight characteristics was a 4 out of 5. All right, back to the video.
Moving on to the camera performance for the Bwine F7 drone.
Oh, hello there.
Smell that? This is Remy. This is my parents' dog. And he came over while I was recording to see what was going on. I think he wants to sit on my lap. He does. Yes. Not convenient or conducive to what I'm trying to accomplish here, but I mean, we can make it work, I guess. All right. So anyway, your little ears are sticking into the lens. Oh, good boy. Anyway, all right, I'll try to focus. He is cute though. Okay. Anyway, moving on to camera performance. So this drone is marketed as a 4K drone. Shoots in 4K video resolution, which is technically true. When it comes to the actual camera quality though, it's not gonna quite meet your standards. It's a little bit deceiving when a drone, any kind of camera really, is marketed as a 4K UHD camera and the picture is just not high definition. As you saw earlier, the camera quality itself is not quite matching up what your expectations might be if a drone is marketed as a ultra high definition drone, because the definition of the image is just not quite there. When I was doing the flight performance review, just for the pure sake of smooth video feed for you to see how the drone handles from the drone's perspective, I did dumb it down to 2.7K at 25 frames per second, which sort of brings me to my next point. This drone only has 2 resolution modes, 2.7K at 25 frames per second. There's no variability in the frame rate on 2.7K, and it's even worse at 4K, in my opinion, at 4K at 15 frames per second. I'm gonna go ahead and pop something up on the screen for you now to show you just what I mean when it comes to 4K at 15 frames per second. Yes, this is a 4K image. This is a 4K video in terms of pixels and resolution, for sure. The math is there. However, I would never use this professionally. I mean, I don't want to say never because only Siths speak in absolutes, isn't that right?
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
And there are no Siths here, only Jedis. So I don't want to speak in absolutes. It's not that I would never use this professionally, but I can think of maybe one instance where I would use this professionally, and it would be like if I intentionally wanted the image quality to not be great. And it sounds a little bit harsh, especially after the flight performance where I gave it a really, really high score. The image just is not there for me with video. Now, on the other side of this, to sort of put some silver lining around this, the 2.7K image at 25 frames per second isn't bad. Would I use it professionally? Probably not. It still doesn't quite have the look that you would need to sell these images and these videos professionally, but if I wanted to post to social media, if I just wanted to share a cool little clip that I caught, anything that isn't for professional use, 2.7K at 25 frames per second, it's not awful. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's actually, I don't want to say decent, it's okay. And it's something that I would post to social media if I were just a hobbyist looking to have fun. Now, why is it that this drone is marketed at 4K, but the image quality isn't ultra high definition? Do you hear that? There's a life flight, like an emergency helicopter landing pad at the hospital that's about 4 blocks away from my current house. And it is very, very loud when it comes in. There's no emergency, at least I don't think. Typically it might be like a transport if they need to get them in a timely manner, or they're just flying the helicopter around. I don't know why they do it, but it happens from time to time. So why is it that this 4K UHD image and video isn't up to snuff professionally? It has to do with the sensor size. That's the only thing that I can really deduce, is that the sensor size on this camera just isn't big enough. Now, it's marketed to shoot really well in low light because it has a large sensor. I didn't really receive anything back from Bwine in terms of the actual size of the sensor on this camera. And because of that, and because of the image that I'm seeing through the camera in broad daylight, I don't think that we need to take this out at nighttime, because I just don't think the results are going to be there. It does not seem like a drone that's going to perform well in low light conditions. So I'm not even going to invest the time in it, because honestly, even though I didn't have super high expectations for a drone that's about $450, I am a little disappointed with the camera quality, and more so the lack of variability in the camera quality. Like, at least give us something like 1080p at 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second, whatever. We didn't even get that. We got 4K and 2.7K. I guess I'm just a little bit let down. Overall, the camera performance is not the worst I've ever seen on a drone. In fact, the images, the pictures that it captures aren't bad. I don't have a lot of information when it comes to the picture size or resolution on this camera, but they're not terrible. Two more things I want to cover on camera performance have to do with the variability of the other camera settings. It doesn't have a variable ISO, it doesn't have a variable aperture, it doesn't have anything to change the look or the feel of the image itself on the camera. So what you get is what you get. The last thing is the image stabilization, that 3-axis gimbal. It is by far not the worst 3-axis gimbal I've ever seen. It does a pretty decent job. It's not perfect though. It doesn't function the way you need it to hold a level horizon all the time. And on numerous occasions, I found in video clips, I would go from a slightly tilted horizon to back level to even tilting the other way. It wasn't consistent. So it's, again, not bad. And the only other note that I have on this is the vibration dampeners on the actual drone are not, they don't do their job well enough. So when you fly this drone and then you look at the video that you capture after you're done flying it, there's a lot of vibration and wobble in it. It's not jello like you see with a very popular flagship drone from one of the, if not the leading drone company in the world. It's not jello footage like that, but it's just, you can tell the camera is shaking. Now, I was able to minimize that effect by just putting a stabilization on it in post-production. It did lessen that vibration, and it actually made the footage pretty smooth, especially in 2.7K at 25 frames per second. I didn't see a lot of problems with it when it came to that vibration and that stabilization, but it's just an added step to get that smooth, cinematic, aerial looking footage that you're trying to get out of this camera, the best that you can get out of this camera anyway. So overall, when it comes to camera performance on the Bwine F7 drone, I'm gonna have to go ahead and give them a 3 out of 5. The 2 points they lost here have to do entirely with the marketing on the 4K camera. It doesn't matter to me if your camera isn't the greatest. Now, professionally speaking, yes, I'm only going to use a drone that has a really high quality camera, but when I'm looking at this just for fun, I don't care so much about the camera quality, the resolution. If I'm just flying for fun, for hobby, whatever, it doesn't really matter that much to me. So even if your drone doesn't have the best camera in the world, if I have fun flying it, what does it matter? If I were Bwine, I probably would have just stayed in my lane on this drone until I had the technology to actually deliver a true 4K experience, and I would have just put a 1080p sensor on this drone or a 1080p camera on this drone. People still enjoy 1080p footage. In fact, it's still largely the industry standard. Everybody mixes down to 1080p, and that's the resolution that they stick at. Everybody seems to be happy with it. So why not just do that and do it really, really well? You might be able to pull customers away from other companies if you stay in that lane and you say, yeah, we don't have a 4K camera, but we have a really, really solid 1080p experience that you'll be able to use in almost any hobby application. It was just a little frustrating for me to get excited about seeing this 4K image and having it fall so flat. Again, positive note, 2.7K at 25 frames per second isn't bad. Actually preferred that over the 4K image, but the big thing is that variability on the frame rate. You're stuck at 25 frames per second, which in the United States isn't even like a standard frame rate. That's more like Europe. So 25 frames per second is more of just a pain in the neck for me. Not a huge difference. I mean, 24 to 25 frames, you're not gonna notice a huge difference. But again, it would be nice to have some US standard frame rates, at least 24 frames per second as an option.
Yeah, hi, me again. And once again, because I have small brain, here's your score. The camera performance was a 2 out of 5.
One last thing I want to review on this drone that I'm not actually going to give it a score on, but it's just something I wanted to bring to your attention. And the reason I'm not scoring it is because it's actually a subcategory of the flight characteristics category, and that is the wind rating. Now, if you're not familiar with the drone wind rating category scale, it goes from 1 to 10, and most drones fall into a level 5 wind rating, which means they can handle winds up to 24 miles per hour with little to no issue. This drone, the Bwine F7, is rated at a level 6. So that means that it can handle wind speeds from 25 to 30 miles per hour with little to no issues. I took this drone out
I don't know, weeks ago at this point, to try to do a review on the flight characteristics and camera in the field, and I chose maybe one of the worst days to do it, but it did give me an opportunity to see if this wind rating was actually legit. We had a small, I don't want to say storm front, but a small weather front come in that had some snow and some high winds, and I launched the drone, and I found that the level 6 wind rating was a little generous. So I checked the weather app, I checked a lot of different resources to see just how strong the wind was, and it came in anywhere between like 20 to 24 miles, 25 miles per hour. It was right in that area. And the Bwine F7 drone just didn't handle the wind like I think a level 6 drone should have handled that wind speed. It was able to maintain position, kind of. It didn't stay completely still. It didn't hold like a perfectly accurate position or within a very small margin of error. It was being blown around in probably what I would say is a 5-foot radius, any direction. I mean, that's how far away it was, which could be problematic depending upon how busy the airspace that you're in is, whether that's an obstacle like a tree or a building or possibly even another drone. That could be very, very problematic for you. The other thing that I noticed is when I tried to fly against the wind, it had trouble getting anywhere. I did have one go where it started to break through. The wind wasn't quite as severe, but it started to break through. It was having trouble with that headwind and going into the wind. But as soon as the wind picked up and it was back up to that 20 to 25 mile an hour range, it immediately just, the best it could do was hold position, and that's when I had it to the floor. Again, not giving it a rating. I just wanted to throw that in there, that was something that I did have the opportunity, because I chose a bad day to try to go out and review this drone in the field. I did have the opportunity to see it in real time in really high winds, and it just did not perform up to a level 6. I would say it's probably a level 5, but maybe even less. I would say level 4 would probably be more of a fair rating for this drone if you want it to be a good flight experience. I mean, it can handle and stay put in that high of winds, but it really, there's no point in flying it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's time to wrap things up on part 2 of the Bwine F7 drone review. This is our second of 2 videos. It was a lot of fun to fly this drone. I can't knock it totally. It wasn't quite what I expected it to be, just based upon my conversations with the representatives from Bwine and what I read about it online, as well as what I read about it on the box and in the manuals. But overall, it was a pretty fun experience. We're gonna need a whiteboard to tabulate all of the scores that I've given it to this point. So let's go ahead and pull that one up now. First things first, let's break down the categories in each score that the drone received. In the unboxing category, it received a 3.5 out of 5. In setup, it received a 2 out of 5. In flight characteristics, it received a 4 out of 5, and in camera performance, it received a 3 out of 5. That gives it a total score of a 12.5 out of 20, with an average score coming in at roughly 3 out of 5. This is a well-deserved score that I think makes this drone worthy of consideration for any drone pilot that's looking for something more fun to fly. I'll admit, before they reached out, I wasn't even aware that Bwine was a company that made drones. I'm glad that I found out about them though, because it gives me a little bit more diversity to go off of in future reviews, and it allows me to keep my options open moving forward, because I think with the right attention and with the right work and effort put into future drones that this company may or may not produce, that they really could end up putting out an alternative to other drone companies that have, $500-600 drones. It wasn't an awful experience by any stretch of the imagination, but I wouldn't consider the Bwine F7 drone for any type of professional work. If you're looking to use this for professional videography or photography, just don't. I would not recommend it. It will not put out professional level results, and it doesn't have the right flexibility for a true visual creator. However, you could use this professionally in a surveillance situation. If you wanted to just go through a property and just make sure that there's no unwanted intruders or there's no pests or anything like that walking around the perimeter or the area of the property, you could probably use this drone for that. You can see enough through the viewfinder when you're flying this drone that you can pick up on details like that. But I would not use this in any other professional application. The only other use that I would have for this drone is if I just wanted to have fun. It scored a 4 out of 5 on flight characteristics. Was it the best flight experience I've ever had with a drone? No.
but it was a lot of freaking fun. I had so much fun just buzzing this thing around, and I think the fact it's a little bit lower budget and the fact that crashing it wouldn't break the bank sort of gives you that freedom that other drones don't. You can fly this around and really have a good time with it, and if you crash it, you crash it, and it's not a big deal. I mean, it's sad for sure because somebody put work and effort into creating that drone, and then it was your drone that you bought, and you did lose out financially on it, but it's not the same pressure that a higher price tag drone might have. So if you're looking for something fun to fly, I would definitely keep this in the conversation. It's a fun little drone, and I had a great time just testing it out and getting to know each and every one of its little quirks, nuances, and characteristics. Before we wrap things up completely, I do just want to send out a very special thank you to Bwine for trusting me with reviewing their drone. This was a really exciting moment for me because Bwine is the first drone company to reach out to me to do a review of their product. And on top of that, they let me keep the product for free as a form of payment for the review. And it's just like, yeah, money's nice, for sure. But I don't know if I get this across to enough people, but I really love drones. Like, I love the technology. I love the direction that the industry is going. I love all of the possibilities that they open up for us in the future. And it's just a damn good time to fly drones. I just love doing it and creating with drones. It's my passion. And so being able to receive this kind of technology as a form of payment is almost as good as money to me. I mean, it was just a lot of fun, and I had a great time doing it. And again, just a huge thank you to Bwine for being my first ever drone review that I didn't pay for out of my own pocket. You just trusted me with the review, and I will never forget that. If you're interested in the Bwine F7 drone, I've got the link to the Amazon purchase platform down below. Make sure you check it out. And if you're looking for something fun to fly, again, make sure you consider the Bwine F7 drone. Until next time, I'm Chris the Drone Geek, and I am out of here.
Keep my wife's name out your